Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Money Monday, where we talk about financial things and I share with you a lot of information about how my husband and I are getting out of debt and creating a healthy financial future for our family. So today I want to discuss with you a topic that I've seen going around quite a bit lately, and that is how to pay off a debt that is in collections. Now, my husband and I were in this situation during our debt snowball. We're still in our debt snowball, but we're at the very end. And so this is something that we had to seek out some information and get guidance on as well. So I thought it would be helpful to just share that with you today. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now, before we start, what I do want you to understand is that paying off a debt that's in collections is more difficult than just paying off a debt that is still current, say like a credit card that you could go out to the store today and charge on, versus something that has been closed, that is no longer maybe even with the company that it was originally with, which is why it's been closed and it's in collections. It's much harder to deal with. So I do want to warn you that you will need some persistence, you will need some patience, and you will just need to kind of dig your heels in, bear down, and really attack it, and know that you're doing something that is beneficial for your family, and that's something that is very important for your journey as far as your finances go. So with that in mind, let's talk about how to pay off a debt that's in collections. Now, ideally, if you are following Dave Ramsey's system like we are, you will have listed your debts out from smallest to largest, as in the debt snowball, and you will have been paying them from that smallest debt up to the largest debt. Now, what I suggest you do is what we did. We just listed every single debt we had from smallest to largest, including items in collections, items not in collections, etc. Now, some people would have you pay your debts that are in collections after everything that's current has been paid. We didn't choose to do that just because the interest that you're paying on the things that are current is very minimal when you are aggressively attacking your debt. So for us, the interest change wasn't really drastic enough in order to justify moving around certain items. Now, I will say if there's one item that is current and an item that's in collections and their balance is very, very similar, I would go ahead and bump the current one up ahead of the one in collections. That's just my personal preference, but again, you can do whatever you would like to do. So again, this is the route that my husband and I did take. This is what we were doing throughout our snowball journey. And so each time we came to a debt that was in collections, we followed a very specific system. Now, you will have written down all of the balances for your debts, but once you get to an item that's in collections, or really any item in your snowball, you want to double check what the balance is, because you don't want to put away a specific amount of money or go to make a payment and think that you're satisfying the debt in full when really you have like extra interest to pay or something like that. So go ahead and find out what the new balance is. You should be getting a statement each month for each debt that you have, whether current or in collections or old debt. And you should have a balance, a current balance of what that debt is. So go ahead and take that balance, take a look at that, and start making a plan to funnel away that specific amount of money into either a separate checking account, a savings account, a separate savings account, a shoebox, like wherever you're gonna put the money, put it away aside from your actual like regular checking account where like your rent comes out of and you buy gas from or anything like that. Go ahead and set that aside into a completely separate account so that you know that that is exactly for that specific debt. And what this does is that allows you to really have separation between what you're spending and versus what it is that you are needing to put towards this debt. Basically what you're doing is basically what you're doing with this is you are still contributing to the snowball, but it's not going out to a debt right away. So it's just gonna sit into that little account, and as you build that up, you want to get to the full balance of what your collections item is. Now, once you are there, or at least very, very close, what you want to do is go ahead and call the company that has your item that's in collections. And this is where you need some persistence and patience and willpower. So basically what we would do is we would go ahead and call the company. We would explain our financial situation before we had started our Dave Ramsey journey. So we would explain what our income was, what our outgo was, everything that had gone on that had gotten us into that situation where we were no longer able to pay on that debt, because that's really where your problem came, right? That was really where you hit the wall. So your life may look different from this point now, but that's the route that we chose to go down because that was our literal situation. So we would explain that situation and then state that we wanted to to try and make a settlement or settle the account for less than the full balance. Now you need to be very, very specific when you are speaking to these individuals because they will use your words and kind of like twist them against you almost and just use them very loosely. So you need to be very cautious and make sure that you are being very straightforward, very specific, and using very clear terminology, and that when they're responding to you, you're understanding the terminology that they're using also. Because truly, you could say, okay, I want to make a payment on this account, and they'll just say, okay, what would be your payment? What would you like to pay today? And say your balance is $3,000 and you want to settle for $1,000. If you say, I want to make a payment for $1,000, they'll gladly take your payment, but you'll still owe that full balance, the remainder of your balance. So what you want to say is that I would like to make a settlement to settle this account in full. Now, once you get to this point, what I suggest you do is I suggest you offer about a 30% of the full balance. Now that seems really low, but if you listen to Dave Ramsey, what he'll say often about these accounts, the collection agency that's purchased the account has paid like pennies on the dollar for your account. So say you have like a $15,000 balance. Well, they really paid maybe like $1,000, $1,500 for that account. So what they have invested into this account is very, very minimal from the balance that you had. Now, another thing that I will say is remember that your full balance, so say you had, again, the $15,000, credit card or something, and you racked up that whole debt, you are still technically liable for that whole $15,000. So if they don't want to settle for you for $2,000 like you're hoping, or $5,000 like you're hoping, then you have to be okay with that because that is still something that you do owe. So my husband and I have always said, okay, we're going to go in with this. This is going to be our plan of attack. But if it doesn't work out, then we know that we still owe the full balance and we're fine to pay just the balance, not like, interest and fees and all that extra stuff, but the balance that was on the account when it was closed. So again, you want to go in and offer them about a 30% settlement. Now they will come back to you and counter back with something that is higher than that. They'll often counter back with like an 80 or 70 or something, and you just want to continue working with them. What I would suggest is that you continue to be very friendly until they give you reasons not to be. And if they give you, if they start getting nasty and are just really inappropriate, hang up the phone. You don't have to deal with that. That's just something that's really important to remember, that you don't have to take that abuse. You're trying to you're trying to do something to better yourself, and having a financial hardship is something that many people experience. And it's unfortunate because sometimes people are rude about it and they do just get completely out of control with their responses. So sometimes you do just need to hang up and say, I'm going to call another day and we'll try this again. Once you've offered that 30% and they've come back and you've kind of gone back and forth a little bit, if you need to speak to a manager, speak to someone a little bit higher up and explain the situation again, feel free to do so. These conversations can be very lengthy. Again, it can be a very long process, but I promise you that by the end of your conversation, fingers crossed for you, that you'll be at an amount that is comfortable for you and they'll be at an amount that they're comfortable with also, obviously. Now for us, oftentimes we ended up settling for about 40% of the balances that we owed. Now that is a huge change and something that is really, really incredible and that we were super fortunate with. But again, it takes time and it takes bargaining and it takes presenting a specific number and saying, okay, I have this number to give you today. Can you do that? And often they'll say, oh, no, we can do, X, Y, Z. And you'll just have to continue to go back and forth and continue to explain the situation and explain where you're coming from, what it is that you have to offer. Now, once you've come to that agreement, you'll want to do a couple of very specific things. The first thing you want to do is clarify that that final payment will satisfy your account in full. You're not paying the account in full, but you want to get a statement that states that you're satisfying the balance in full. Now, they may kind of clarify or tweak your words a little bit here and there, but as long as you guys come to the same understanding that, okay, once I make this payment, this is done. This is going to be done. It's going to be satisfied. You won't come after me for any additional money, XYZ. And you want to, one, get a statement from them stating what that final payment needs to be. So that can be either in the mail, they can mail it to you, or you can send it email. Or they can send it via email. but you don't send out a payment until you get that in writing, because they can always say, oh no, we never said that. This actually happened to us, you guys. Before we knew like about this system and these tips, I had called to make a payment and close an account. They told me that yes, it would be satisfied in full. We made a payment, and come to find out a couple of months later, they wanted the full balance all over again. So we lost all of that money, and we had to continue bargaining with them and making an agreement with them. And again, this is way before our Dave Ramsey journey, way before we started with the snowball, but it was so devastating to like know that we'd given up that money and really had just gone out the window because someone wasn't being truthful and wasn't held liable for what they had told us. So definitely get everything that you have agreed to in writing before you send a payment, before you do anything. Once you have that final agreement in writing that the final payment that you're going to make is going to satisfy our account in full, go ahead and send the payment. And I would suggest sending like a cashier's check or I would send a cashier's check specifically, because you don't want to give them any electronic access to your checking account, your savings account, anything like that. So you will send a cashier's check along with a copy of that letter stating that this is the final payment and the account is satisfied. Now back to your phone call, because there's one other piece of documentation that you want to get from them, and that is to know when you will receive your account is paid in full or your balance has been satisfied letter from them. Because once they receive that final payment, they need to send you a letter stating that the account has been satisfied. And they will know the date that they can send that to you. Basically, you'll agree upon a date to send in that check, to send in your final payment, and then they'll basically need about 30 days, as has been my experience, that they need 30 days from the time they receive your check in order to get your letter to you that says your account is paid in full, your balance is satisfied in full. So figure on about a month, but again, you want to make sure that you document that. So what I would do is I would write down the date that they told us, and then I would make sure to get the information of the person I spoke with, their first and last name, their phone number, their worker ID or what have you, and document the conversation and make sure that when the date comes that you receive that letter. If you don't receive it, then there's a problem. You need to call and get that letter. And we would get it both by email and in the mail. So just to make sure that you have it and it's not getting lost in the mail somewhere or anything like that. And then you save that letter for your taxes, because you might have to pay income taxes on the balance that wasn't paid. So say if there's a difference between your $5,000 credit card and you paid $2,500, you might have to owe taxes on the $2,500. So you want to keep all of that documentation. And really that is it. Once you have that final letter, then you can cross it off your snowball and you can move on to the next item on your list and you're good to go. It's a difficult process again, it's a lengthy process, it can be a frustrating process, but it's definitely one that is worth it. And it's one that, every single time that you are clearing up a debt, it helps you and it just goes further into really clarifying your own finances and really helping your financial future. So I hope that's been helpful. If you guys are experiencing, a debt that is in collections and you're just not sure how to handle it, I hope these tips have been helpful. Again, this is the exact process that we used. We had 3 items in collections and we used this each time. The only time it wasn't successful was just this most recent item, which we're still like kind of in the bargaining position with. So we'll keep you guys updated and let you know how that went. But every other time we've used it, it's been successful and it's something that's simple, but it does require some work. So I hope that's been helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day and a great week.